Alright, hello everyone and welcome to The Cat in the Hat Plays Life is Strange, Episode 1, Part 1. Now, this is all very exciting. This is my fourth try, probably, recording this episode. And I've finally got the audio levels right, I've got it saving in the right format, I've got it rendering at a pretty high quality, and I think we're a go to do this. So, before I begin, I guess I'll tell you about what this Let's Play is really for. Number one, it's for me. I'm really trying to process my feelings about this game. I'm trying to process all my thoughts about this game. And a bit of background on me, I'm a university student in the social sciences, interested in game design. I've been getting a little bit into that, interested in writing, interested in, the interactivity of, games and narrative. So this playthrough is kind of a way for me to process my thoughts about the game in real time as they sort of unfold. Number two, this play is for my friends and family, should they be interested. Warning to my family, I'm going to be probably swearing a lot, and that's not a thing that you're used to me doing. So, with that, and a warning to my friends, do not watch this video. Even if you want to support me, do not watch it if you have not yet played through Life is Strange or have watched another Let's Play of it. This is not a Let's Play where it's primarily about my reactions. It's primarily about my commentary, about my thoughts, about my analysis of the game as a form, and things like that. And as such, there's going to be episode 5 spoilers pretty much from the beginning of episode 1. So, it's Christmas break. If you've told me that you're going to play the game as soon as Christmas break happens, you don't have an excuse anymore. So go do that. And then number 3, this video is for whomever happens to stumble upon it on the internet. Again, don't watch unless you've already watched a different Let's Play that's a first-timer's Let's Play without any spoilers, as well. If you can, if it's financially feasible for you, play the game itself. Highly recommend this game. That's why I'm doing a Let's Play of it. So let's get to it. And yep, I don't know why it calls itself DLC. That really tricked me when just after episode 5 came out. I'm like, oh, it says checking for DLC. That must mean that it's, there's going to be DLC coming out. But no, it just treats the episodes as DLC, so that's a bit silly. And yep, going to be, oh wait. Hold on. Gotta trash that game because this is, again, the 4th time I've been trying to record this. And a new game, yep. And I'm going to turn the sound down a bit in my headphones and turn the brightness up because, as we know, the game opens in kind of a dark place. And, yep, little save icon that represents her writing in her journal. I've realized that. And there's me, or Max Caulfield. There's a really great article on Vice about who are you when you are playing a video game. Where's the interactivity between the protagonist and between you, and especially interesting with Max because she isn't a silent protagonist. She's very obviously voiced. Get her internal commentary on practically everything in the environment. So there's a lot of people on the internet saying oh, well, I want to do that. Well, no, of course you don't want to do that. Max is the one who's wanting to do things or not wanting to do things. So I'll have a lot more to say about that later, but that's my initial thoughts from the first views of the protagonist, yep. And bit of a, realistic game design aspect there. You've got this massive tree. Even if there was a jump function in this game, which there isn't, Max wouldn't be able to jump that. I wouldn't be able to jump that. I'd have to climb myself up very awkwardly. So my interpretation of this opening scene is this is what would happen in some kind of world where Max had timed powers and Chloe was not a part of her life. So the storm would still exist, but Chloe wouldn't. Not really sure how that's possible. I'll probably come up with something better by the end of this episode. And yeah, so I can't, yeah, tornado. I've heard a lot of mixed things about the tornado. Like, some people think it looks really great, some people think it looks really hokey. I do know from the developer diaries on YouTube that they wrote a whole new program relating to the tornado. I don't know if they used it to its full extent, but I think the tornado looks quite nice. So yeah, I need to look at this. Max and Chloe, BFF Pirates 2008. The game is set in 2013. So yeah, that's 5 years back. That's just before Max left Arcadia Bay. Well Academy, 1910. School's about 103 years old, and I'll remember that date, 1910, for when we get to Nathan's garage, or the farmhouse in episode 4, and yep, the lighthouse. Yep, there we are. And this is, yeah, this is just Max dealing with what might happen, and she's powerless to fix it. She doesn't know that she's yet have the power to cause it, or that she has the power to fix it. And yep, she's about to get hit in the head by the lighthouse.
That was so surreal.
Famously called film Little Pieces of Time. But he could be talking about photography, as he likely was.
Okay, I'm in class. Everything's cool. I am okay. I'll sleep.
So I've looked up Diane Arbus on my phone, and all this commentary about her seeing humanity as tortured. Actually, hold on a sec. Let me go into here so that
look at this crap.
The lecture doesn't
How
go
can I
on
show
while I
this
talk
to
about
Mr.
it.
Jefferson? I can hear the class laughing at me now.
So I'll talk about the lecture, and then I'll talk about this photo. So I've looked up Diane Arbus. I've looked up Robert Capa, I believe is the other one, who talks about in here in this introductory lecture, and as a lot of people on the internet have pointed out, and as episode 5 makes pretty obvious, there's a lot of foreshadowing in this introductory lecture to like Mr. Jefferson's ultimate evil nature. Spoiler alert for episode 4, like, if you haven't already got, like, the fact that this is going to be a very spoilerific playthrough. So, yeah, like Alfred Hitchcock, Little Pieces of Time, obviously that has to do with photography, obviously that has to do with Max and her time powers. Diane Arbus, from looking at her photos, like, she's got a, like, all the people in her photos just look so sad. There's a photo called a child with a toy hand grenade, I think it's called, that I looked at, and it just points to, yeah, humanity being tortured. And the reason why Mr. Jefferson says, like, and frankly that's bullshit, I could frame any one of you in a dark corner, about the famous line, is that humanity for him isn't inherently tortured. He's got to create the torture for humanity. And he does that, obviously, by, like, taking these innocent young girls and drugging them and, like, photographing them in their half-unconsciousness, moving from their innocence to their fear. So he sees humanity as, like, inherently innocent, and he's got to sort of create this fear in them. So, there's that. And they say they prefer Robert Capa. They don't really elaborate on why, but Robert Capa, he's got a lot of, like, Americana-type things. Like, a lot of his photos sort of harken back to, like, the famous ones out of the Great Depression. They aren't from that time. He was only born in 1924. And I'm not sure exactly when his famous photos were taken, but, yeah. So, probably someone who knows more about photography could tell me more about, like, why they brought in Robert Capa and why they eventually bring in Salvador Dali. I don't really know anything about Dali's photography. I know that, you know, the clocks smelting and, you know, his, like, very surreal paintings, but I don't know anything about his photography. And I have heard some people on the internet who do, like, know about photography say that this is a absolutely terrible photography lecture, and yeah, it probably is. I don't really know anything about the history of photography or anything, but it probably is. But that's not the point of it. The point is to establish a lot of things. It's to establish, number one, that Victoria is an ass. Number two, that Mr. Jefferson is You know, the hipster, teacher, famous person, like, kind of everyone's stereotype of what a famous photographer would be. And number 3 is to do all this wonderful foreshadowing that we've got in here. We've got foreshadowing to Max's eventual time powers. We've got foreshadowing to Mr. Jefferson being the culprit. We've got foreshadowing, really to, like, Rachel's, ultimate disappearance, and the reason for her disappearance. And, we don't have foreshadowing to the ending itself, as far as I'm aware. Perhaps if I think about it longer, I'll come up with something. But, yeah, the point of it isn't to be a good photography lecture. It's to be what a photography lecture might be in the context of this game. So, yeah. And then on the subject of this photo, I think it's really funny. Like, number 1, like, of course, obviously they had it be a selfie that she enters in the Everyday Heroes contest because she, saves various people, various times. She is a quote-unquote everyday hero. But, I don't know. It's just very artsy, and, looking at the other photos, I would have picked Kate's photo. Yes, Max's is, pretty, but I'm not sure it, encapsulates the theme of everyday heroes. And, it is very pretty, and a lot of people online have said, no, it's not crap. And again, that points to the fact that, you're not playing as you're playing as Max. Max is, a very insecure person. She's there, and she doesn't really know she deserves to be in this, prestigious photography program, etc., etc. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
You feel totally haunted by the eyes of those sad mothers and children.
Let's go into the journal.
If anybody else looked at this, what would they think?
Probably exactly what they'd think, any other teenage girl's journal. Just, it's a teenage girl's journal. So, yeah. I'll just go through this and find things that I think are interesting. I think that the journal itself is just kind of a masterfully done thing. I know a lot of people, YouTubers in Let's Plays I've watched, have just kind of skipped over it, but I think it gives a lot of really much needed context. It allows you to predict things that you might otherwise not, and it's just very flavorful and well done world building. And yes, it's completely cheesy and hokey, but Max isn't expecting anyone to read her innermost thoughts, so it almost makes me feel like a bit of an intruder to be reading her journal, but, yeah, the whole game sort of does a little bit. We know things about Max that no one does, not even Chloe. We see her innermost observations about the mundanest of objects, and, things that she says are pretty embarrassing a lot of the time. And she's obviously very insecure about what people think about her, about whether or not she deserves to be there, and so by going into her journal, are we sort of enhancing her insecurities? Are we telling her that she's right to be insecure about these things? I mean, of course not, she's not a real person, but something to think about. I might write on that topic. Anyway, if words could dance, this would be a rave, even though I've never been to one. See, trademark bad metaphors from Max. Sorry, thanks for playing, that's the next interesting bit, because this is a game. And my mom cried and my dad laughed, they're so weird. Oh, yep. That's pretty normal parents' reactions, yep. Oh, wait, no, I want to talk about these, if I can work it in... Okay. She gets a lot of money for her birthday, anyway. So this, town I was excited about leaving, the way I've kind of reconciled that in my head is that she was excited to leave the small town and go to the big city of Seattle, as she just talks about the city being so exciting over here, but, she was sad to leave Chloe. She wishes Chloe could move with us, but it still doesn't explain why, Max, didn't call Chloe or anything, I don't know, she doesn't ever really give, a good reason why she didn't, reach out to Chloe after William died. You have some dialogue options that sort of hint at there not being a reason, and just Max messing up, which I like. I like that you own up to a mistake that happened when you weren't the player. I like that. Pirates. I'll probably talk about pirates when we get to Warren, but the long and short of it is I think that Chloe, this pirate motif points to the fact that, like, Chloe is, like, a very exciting person and, like, a better match for Max than Warren is. Warren says that he's a pirate, but all of his piracy happens on the internet, which, you know, is a lot less dangerous than the pirate activities that Chloe does, and they have a lot less of a bond, Max and Warren, than Max has a bond with Chloe going back to when they were kids relating to pirates. So that's the long and short of it. That's the short of it. I'll talk about the long of it later. Insert hearts and flowers. Why do you say that and not just draw hearts and flowers? Oh, Max. See, there I go again, like, criticizing Max. Cool, diverse students from everywhere. So here's the thing about that, is that I can count the non-white, or, like, kind of reads as non-white characters on one hand. Or, let's see, there's Principal Wells, who's the only non-white character up in here. Yeah, then we've got Miss Grant, we've got Daniel, we've got Stella, we've got Hayden. Brooke, to me, kind of reads as non-white. I don't know if other people got that vibe. That would put us at 6, actually, so, like, more than one hand, unless you've got, like, extra fingers. So, I don't know. Like, at first I thought that that might be sort of, like, meta-commentary on, like, the nature of, like, diversity in elite programs and things like that. But then I realized, like, no, if it was that kind of thing, then I feel like that, like, they would ignore an opportunity to make elite commentary just because there is so little diversity in games. So if it was that, if they were acknowledging the fact that diversity in elite institutions, as well as diversity in games, is a problem, then they would try and use their power as makers of a game, and as, you know, upholders of this tradition of game making, to subvert that problem and insert diverse characters. So, like, rather than it being a meta-commentary, I think that it was just an oversight, which is a shame, because this game does pretty well on lots of other topics. But racial diversity is not one of them. And then this whole, I never really found a group of my classmates, or boys, parentheses, ha, that's because you love Chloe. Island of treasure and more pirates. Shit is crazy with a K. This made me want to cry like a little girl and never leave Seattle. So that line's really interesting. When she was a little girl in Arcadia Bay, doesn't want to leave her parents, but like she's kind of going back to where she was a kid, but yet when she's leaving Arcadia Bay, she's having to leave her parents behind, or when she's leaving Seattle, she's having to leave her parents behind and go back to Arcadia Bay, which is where she was a kid, but she's had this, like, adult context for it now, and she's all on her own, and, yeah, those are just some really interesting lines pointing to, like, the, like, innocence and, like, confronting adulthood theme that's sort of around in this game. This bit, it's funny that she talks about, like, Chloe, like, not recognizing her, she got, like, tats and piercings, because, you know, photography puns. This game is just puns all over the place, and I love it. Yeah, new dorm room. Okay, so one thing that bothers me about this game, I know why they had to do it from a game design perspective. Max has got to have enough room to turn around in the room. But she says it's a small room. That is the biggest fucking dorm room I have ever seen. Anyway, that's one thing that bothers me as someone who lived in a dorm room for 2 years. Yeah. This is the start of my new life, sweet dreams. Such metaphor. Kate, Brooke, Taylor, Lisa, yes, those are people in this game. And, yeah, this whole paragraph, yeah, she's talking about how judgmental Victoria is, and then she's like, yep, I'm gonna judge Victoria for it. And I guess that just points to the fact that, like, Max and Victoria have more in common than they're willing to let on, and, like, if you choose the, like, friendship with Victoria options, you can hear more about that. I don't know, I think that Victoria, like, yes, I do feel very sorry for her, like, having been, you know, one of the girls that ends up getting kidnapped and, like, presumably killed, at one point in one of the alternate realities, but, yeah, yeah, I don't know. It's a very realistic high school dynamic. The people judging each other for being judgmental. Call the ambulance. Yes, call the ambulance. I'm so glad that Max realizes how melodramatic she is. Warren Graham, and he's a serious geek, plus he's dark and witty. Warren is many things. I don't think that dark would be the adjective I used to describe him on the first day of meeting him. Like, not even his hair is dark. It's kind of sandy looking. Oh, yeah. Based on the click action here. Yeah, there's a little bit of that in this school. I don't know. I stayed out of a lot of that when I was in high school, but that's what I love about this game, is it sort of gives you the opportunity to, like, it's set in a high school, but it's such a power trip, and I'll talk a lot more about that when we actually get the time powers. OMG, I want to marry him, just joking. That reminds me of the bit in The Nightmare when you're, like, forced to tell him that you love him, or, like, thanks for killing Chloe, or you're forced to be extra creepy romantic to him in your nightmare. I love that, like, we'll talk about that with The Nightmare, but I love that, like, reduction of agency. Yeah, oh, yesterday during class he put his feet on the desk, started texting, and the teacher didn't say jack. So see, all those people who skipped over the journal, like, didn't hear that, and their decisions, they're not making an informed decision to Principal Wells. I'd get suspended. Yep, again, he can get his record cleaned anytime. Vortex Club. This game is puns about photography and puns about tornadoes. She's so pretty and sweet and friendly. I wish that you could romance Kate in this game. Like, I probably wouldn't, but I wish that that was an option, and I wish that in the, like, nightmare part, when, if you're romancing Chloe, you kind of, like Chloe's, like, in the dark room with you and, like, doing a photo shoot with Jefferson and making out with Warren and Victoria and all this. I wish that Kate was in that part, because Kate is kind of, like, treated as, like, not having any romantic life, which, like, maybe she doesn't. Maybe she's, like, an asexual character. I don't know. But it would be interesting, like, considering this whole, like, abstinence thing that she's got going on, and this whole, like, loss of innocence thing that she's got going on, to have her be in there. And I do wish that, like, if she was asexual, they would just go out and say it. Everyday Heroes contest, yeah. Miss Graham exists, Warren exists. I'm just glad I'm not the only social misfit here. I don't know, a lot of people have said, like, no, everyone's so nice to Max, she's not a social misfit. The thing is, like, even if she really isn't, the fact that she thinks she is just something that's so utterly relatable to teenage girls. October, my favorite month. And October Country by Ray Bradbury. I looked that up. It's a collection of short stories. There's probably something symbolic in there that I'll look up more and talk about in episode 2 when you've got to actually have the book in your inventory. See, Battle Royale, Cannibal Holocaust, Warren is into some very odd things. You so punny, Max. Again, lampshading everything. Lampshading all of the, like, dialogue problems that sort of plague the first game. That's what's in the journal, is just, like, them acknowledging the fact that, like, this is a bit cheesy. You have all the time in the world. Telling me on a loop, even. That's important. So yeah, and I'll look in here. For some reason, I was always drawn to old analog gear rather than digital tech. Yeah, it's because you're a hipster. Yeah, and this whole private school for 12th grade seniors, but, like, Yet, like, Chloe and Rachel were there last year, and, like, Rachel was, like, part of the Vortex Club, but the Vortex Club is part of the school, and, like, Nathan and, like, Hayden knew Rachel, and, like, Stella knew Rachel, and Stella was in Mr. Jefferson's class with Rachel, and I'm just very confused. I think perhaps the developers just didn't understand American school whatsoever. Mr. Jefferson. So these sentences, foreshadowing, can be a bit condescending, pretty hip for his age, but kind of aloof and sometimes pretentious. Smug smile when he thinks he's right. He acts like he understands my own work. Okay, acts like, that's very important lines. Oh, Kate. Again, like, I wish that, you know, the Kate had more dimensions, I guess. I don't know. I like, in the, like, Love is Strange fan-made visual novel dating sim thing, Kate is a romance option in there. Only the demo's out, and that's a, like, romancing Chloe kind of arc, which is really, really well done, and I really like it. But, I'm excited that they've put Kate in it. I probably won't take that option, but I'm glad that they put it in there. And Victoria. Total bitch, and I hate saying that. Yes, okay. Amazing. Max lampshading herself. Yeah. And she also has an eye for Mr. Jefferson. Yeah, so do you, Max. Looking at your journal. Let's look at the texts. Yeah. Max's dad gave her money because they can afford to do that because she got a scholarship. They want to get tea, and oh yeah, I'll choose the dialogue options when I talk to Kate that, like, allows them to get tea. Yeah, yep, and Warren. I have so much to say about Warren. I probably won't right now. Just because, number one, we haven't met him yet, and number two, like, I'm feeling a bit sad, about someone in my life who reminds me of Warren. Also, I'm going to try and get all the optional photos, in this play, so I've got the walkthrough up, and I'm going to do that. And I just discovered this, only just, like, I had my own, like, quote-unquote canon playthrough, and then I sat down and played with a friend who's taking up my save 2 slot, and then I sat down and played with another friend who finished the game last week, and that, she was in my save game 3 slot. And that's when I discovered this feature, was you can look at everything that you looked at. So that's really
She saw
cool.
humanity as tortured, right? And
So,
frankly, it's bullshit.
let's see what time it is.
Keep that to yourself. Seriously, though,
Okay,
I could frame
yeah,
any one of you in a dark corner and
I'll stop
capture
this
you in
part
a moment
here,
of desperation.
and, I'll
And
listen
any
to
one
the
of you could
rest
do
of the
that to me.
lecture, and then I'll stop this part.
Isn't that too easy?
Because, I have
obvious?
talked a lot, and
What if Arbus
I want
chose
these
to
to be
capture people at
relatively
the
short.
height of their beauty or innocence? She had a brilliant eye. So
Height of their innocence.
she could have taken
Yeah.
another approach.
Mr. Jefferson
I
foreshadowing.
have to admit, I'm not a
Robert
big
Frank,
fan
that's
of
who
her
it is, not Robert Capa.
I should take a
Robert
picture
Capa is the one that
while
you
I'm still
talk
here.
about with
This is
Evan
perfect for
later
my
on.
portfolio.
Oh
And
yeah,
that
also
would be
let's
my
talk about
daily
the UI.
selfie
Like,
photo.
you can
And there was
definitely tell
honesty
this
about
game
the
is made
economic
for
conditions of the
consoles
era.
because the
But
UI
a
is
beauty in the
just
struggle.
very strange. A
You
lot of
don't
people,
have
like,
beauty
wouldn't
without
realize, like, a lot of
Which
people,
explains why
like,
Frank
the
was
people I
Kerouac's
sat down and
photographic
played with, the
muse.
people on the internet,
And
and
both were the
me
great
in my first
chroniclers
playthrough would
of the
drag
1950s.
towards
Well,
the object
We've
to
all
look at it.
seen that iconic shot of Kerouac on the balcony. And if you haven't, shame.
Whereas they want
Capturing the
to,
romantic
yeah,
urban
I don't know. I
solitude
think
of the
it's probably
20th century
because
poet.
if the journal
You
is
dig?
probably more in the center of your vision.
Now, contrast Frank's stark Americana with
Frank's
Salvador
stark
Dali's surrealist
Americana.
photographs.
Yes, that's a good
Like
way of describing
Cocteau,
it.
he was a true
I don't
Renaissance
know
man.
Cocteau.
And his famous self-portraits are famous early examples
So the
of that
thing-
truly awful
yeah.
word you pesky kids love so
Yeah,
much.
if you just keep listening
The
to this
selfie.
lecture, he eventually,
And
like,
it's a
asks a
great
question,
tradition,
and
and I
Victoria doesn't
wholeheartedly
know
fight
the
for your
answer, and
right
it
to
just
self-expression.
waits for you to take the
Or
selfie.
selfie expression.
Yes. And a lot of the dialogue
I know.
lines repeat.
So if anybody wants to
from
question the portrait as modern
Max's,
narcissism, they could go back
like,
hundreds of years
the
to Blaine
question that
society.
he asks to Max when she
Speaking
takes
of
her selfie.
questions, I bet you thought I'd talk all the way until the bell rang. It's your turn to lecture us. Now, Based on the chapters, I have no
he asks
doubt
the
you
question,
are
and
memorized.
Victoria doesn't
Who
know
can tell me the
until
name of the actual
the part when you're
process
playing.
that led to the birth of the self-portrait?
So, yeah, I'm going to stop this part right here, and thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Actually, no, JK, I'm going to wait. I'm going to take the selfie, go through these options, and then it'll, like, auto-save for me. Okay.
Just jump right in with an answer. Shh. I believe Max has taken what you kids call a selfie.
And again, like, if you wait for the lecture
a wonderful photographic tradition.
Happen, like,
and Max
a lot of it doesn't, a lot of this doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Of course,
He
as
asks
you
the
all
same
know,
question,
the
he
photo
repeats
portrait
some of the
has
same
been popular
information,
since the early 1800s.
but it is interesting to hear all
Your
the things
generation
about,
was not
like,
the first
Cocteau
to
and
use images
Dali,
for
and
selfie expression.
things that you wouldn't hear if you got the
Sorry,
UI right away.
I couldn't resist. The point remains that the portraiture has always been a vital aspect of art and photography for as long as it's been around. Now, Max, since you've captured our interest and clearly want to join the conversation, can you please tell us the name of the process that gave birth to the first self-portraits?
So here it is, the very first choice in the game, and you really don't have a choice. Like, you get the same dialogue options after, or you get the same, response from Mr. Jefferson after, and there isn't any way for you to know until later. So that points to just, like, how powerless you are in high school when you don't have time powers, and how amazing it is to have time powers. So, yeah.
I did know, but I kind of forgot.
You either know this or not, Max. Is there anybody here who knows their stuff?
Louis Daguerre was a French painter who created daguerreotypes, a process that gave portraits a sharp reflective style like a mirror. Now you're totally stuck in the retro zone.
Sad face. Yes, Victoria's people don't actually talk like that.
The Daguerrean process brought out fine detail in people's faces, making them extremely popular from the 1800s onward. The first American daguerreotype self-portrait was done by Robert Cornelius. You can find out all about him in your textbook, or even online. And guys, don't forget the deadline to submit a photo in the Everyday Heroes contest. I'll fly out with the winner to San Francisco, where you'll be feted by the art world. It's great exposure, and it can kickstart a career in photography.
Great exposure,
so Stella,
very funny.
Melissa, get it together. Taylor, don't hide.
Oh, one more thing before they all leave the classroom. Let's talk about the organization of the classroom. Like, not a whole lot of people on the internet I've noticed have seen this, but he sits his, like, future victims right in front of him, looking at him,
doesn't waste a second kissing ass.
He sits the people, like the boys and the, like, less conventionally attractive girls, going off, like, Mr. Jefferson's definition of beauty rather than, like, any kind of objective definition or, like, my own. I quite like Stella and Alyssa, despite the fact that Mr. Jefferson seemingly doesn't. So, oh yeah, I'll just go through these bits.
Now I wish I wouldn't have read this. Purge.
I don't like the fact that she says purge. That's, I mean, yes, it is kind of a thing that people would say. And Max doesn't know a whole lot about mental health, but, like, I really wish the game wouldn't throw around stuff like that. That's a real problem that real people deal with.
Blackwell. Everything looks so green.
I love these moments when you can, like, look about, and it's just really calm, and I love the moments when you can sit. There was a really great article I read about those moments.
Hi, Kate.
Oh. Hi, Max.
I'm going to be choosing the dialogue options that lead to,
You seem
us
quiet
keeping our
today.
tea date. We don't ever actually go to tea, but I do like it.
I hear that. Want to go grab a cup of tea and bitch about life?
I like how it's cup of
Thanks,
tea,
but not today.
but pronounced like C-U-P-A.
I have to go over
tea.
homework.
No worries. Let's hang later.
Sure.
Yep, and there's Kate. So sad. Let's look at Kate. What does...
Kate looks so sad and
yes,
quiet
she looks so
today.
sad. Yes, we said that
Poor
to her.
thing.
The printer. She says, like, that's an
That
awesome
printer is
printer.
amazing. I'd love to see how it
It's
reproduces
nowhere
my
near
pictures.
as good as the
I
printer
could
in the
pump out a little
dark
gallery
room.
show with that thing. When?
Yeah,
Looks like somebody was already working on this. Cool.
A lot of people, this is the first thing that they interact with in the world, other than when you're sitting down at your desk and they want to, like, mess up all these dials. Yeah, so I don't know, this is just an example of, like, despite the fact that you're going to be looking at a lot of computer screens in this game, and you're going to be, like, looking at texting screens, you don't actually have any, like, impact on the things. You're more of a passive observer, and this is just kind of teaching you how the game works with regards to that. Let's look at the photo equipment. I'm going to try and look at practically everything. I know where
That was
practically
amazing when
everything
Mr.
is.
Jefferson took a class picture the
Having
first
sat
week.
through my own playthrough,
Even
a lot
though
of
I didn't
YouTubers'
want to be in the picture at
playthroughs,
all, it was
two
fairly fucking cool to
in-person
watch him at work
friends.
framing us.
So, yeah, I don't know. Perhaps he had a lot of work framing us. To me, I don't know. Oh, it is kind of interesting that, like, Victoria and Max and Kate, to a certain extent, are, like, at the corners of the table. Did he frame it that way on purpose? And Kate is, like, an upstanding citizen, she's standing up. Perhaps I'm reading too
I
much
love
into
seeing
that.
Mr. Jefferson's
But
awesome photos on these magazine covers.
is grunge dead? 10 reasons to get electronic mail. Oh dear, that's the most 90s. Okay, and photo equipment. Very expensive.
They have carbon fiber tripods here. The ball head even has
I
a
don't know if that's
hand lock.
actually an impressive thing. I don't know
God,
anything
I'm
about this
such a
equipment.
photo nerd. Even her school
She
books are
gift wraps
gift
the
wrapped.
things. I don't know why that's
I
a
can't
bad
believe
thing. I
she
think
made
they're
fun
quite
of me in
pretty.
class. What is she, 15?
She
Of
thinks it's a
course,
tablet.
Victoria has to have the bestest, newest, most expensive.
She says right
I
before
should
she
have
looks
known.
at Victoria
She'll
going
have better
online
equipment
shopping
than
for a
Blackwell.
$5,000 camera. Okay, and I'll look at this.
This is definitely where cameras go to heaven.
Cameras go to heaven?
Oh man, they have those sweet
Oh, I didn't
ultrasonic
know about
lenses.
that.
So cool to see Mr. Jefferson's
Mark
actual
Jefferson's
published
noir
pictures.
beauty.
Gives me hope.
Oh, that looks like a little bit of blood coming out of her bra. Ominous. Film. Oh, well, when? It will be decided on Sunday. It's John Cena. Something. I hate John Cena. Okay. And optional photo number 1. Amazing. That's another thing about me. I say the word amazing a lot. Okay, and... oh, yes. I've got to save. So, yes, since I've got to save, I'm going to finish this part here, and I will make another part tonight, but I'll upload it later, and thanks for watching. Bye.